Welcome! Thank you for joining the League of Women Voters and our mission to make democracy work for all. Like us, you joined this webinar because you want to change how money is influencing our democracy. Great! Let's get started. Why is this a League and voter priority? Well, we believe in competitive elections that promotes ideas, citizen participation, and factual information. We also believe elections are when we are all equal. Therefore, we believe that to ensure that citizen participation in the political process is not drowned out by special interests and big donors, we need Congress, the President, and citizens to come together and stand up to outside influences. Only together will we be able to stop the sale of our democracy. Why now? There is the old saying, there's no time like the present. But seriously, our democracy can't wait any longer. Candidates and our representatives are raising and spending absurd amounts of money. In the 2016 election, according to OpenSecrets.org, some state Senate races spent as much as $50 million, and state House races spent over $19 million. More than that, the 2012 presidential election year proved the most expensive on record, $3.8 billion. Now, imagine what $3.8 billion or even $19 million can buy in TV, radio, news, and internet ads in your community. Now, imagine the possible promises and agendas behind the millions of dollars contributed to campaigns. An election is always around the corner. Politics is a constant. This is why now is the time to act. Tens of thousands of League members and hundreds of thousands of supporters believe people are what matter in elections and policy creation. Our experience and thoughtful research has led us to a position that will help you and your community take action. As you plan your campaign to reduce the influence of big money in your local and state politics, we want you to know we have a position, a sort of democracy-improving agenda. You'll want to take notes. For starters, the League of Women Voters believes that the methods of financing political campaigns should enhance political equality for all citizens. It should ensure maximum participation by citizens in the political process. It should protect representative democracy from being distorted by big spending in election campaigns. It should provide voters sufficient information about candidates and campaign issues to make informed choices. It should ensure transparency and the public's right to know who is using money to influence elections. It should enable candidates to compete equitably for public office. And it should ensure that candidates have sufficient funds to communicate their messages to the public. And lastly, it should combat corruption and undue influence in government. In other words, campaigns should listen to, talk with, and represent the will of voters. We have our work cut out for us, with many Supreme Court decisions in recent years making the bloat of money easy and the expense of elections great. A lot has led up to this moment. But to be clear, equality is the goal. But since we know what we stand for, what we want, and what corruption is, our work is clear and the rock we must push is not so heavy, especially when we know we have the force of our position and the support of our members and friends backing us. So that we all have a clear understanding of what corruption is, the League means it to be any candidate or office holder who agrees to vote or work in favor of a donor's interests in exchange for campaign contribution. Any office holder or staff who gives greater access to donors. Any office holder who votes or who works to support politics that reflect the preference of individuals or organizations in order to attract contributions from them. Any candidate or office holder who seeks political contributions that imply there will be retribution unless a donation is given. And the result of the political process that consistently favor the interests of significant campaign contributors. Now let's push that rock out of the way to make a path for fair elections and politics. Now that we know the hurdles we face, let's get to what we want to bring to our democracy in order to make it more perfect. So in order to achieve our goals for a better working democracy, the League supports public financing of elections, either voluntary or mandatory, in which candidates must abide by reasonable spending limits. enhanced enforcement of campaign finance laws that includes changes to ensure the regulatory agencies are properly funded, staffed, and structured to avoid partisan deadlock in the decision-making process. Abolishing super PACs and abolishing spending coordinated or directed by candidates other than a candidate's own campaign committee, and restrictions on direct donations and bundling by lobbyists, which may include monetary limits as well as other regulations. Until full public financing of elections is enacted, limits on election spending are needed in order to see the League's goals for protecting democratic processes. Among different entities that spend money to influence elections, the League supports the following comparative limits. Higher spending limits for political parties, genuinely non-partisan voter registration and get-out-the-vote organizations and activities, and candidates spending money raised by contributors. Mid-level spending for individual citizens, including wealthy individuals, political action committees with funds contributed by individuals associated with sponsoring organizations such as employees, stockholders, members, and volunteers, and candidates spending their own money. Lower spending limits for trade associations, labor unions, and nonprofit organizations from their general treasure funds. Severely restricted spending by for-profit organizations spending from their corporate treasury funds, and no limits on spending by bona fide newspapers, television, and other media, including the internet, except to address partisan abuse or the use of media to evade campaign finance regulations. We've covered the League's position. You know what corruption is and the keys for making our democracy work for all. Now it's your turn to take the baton. Make an impact in your community and state. With your passion and talents, and with the support of League friends and resources, you will make an impact. To give you some ideas that you alone can do, consider what you have around you. Pen, internet, friends and family, and your League community. Write a letter to your newspaper. Start a blog. Share what you know about money and politics on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Start a book group, a discussion group, or a house party event that focuses on campaign finance and political influence. Call your legislators and elected officials. Ask questions to office holders and candidates seeking public office about fundraising, contributions, and campaign finance reform. These are just a few ideas, but even if you do one, you'll start a conversation that will likely ignite larger discussion. In a group, you have more power. With more power, your letter writing can make an even bigger impact. Write to your elected officials, to the candidates running for elected office, and to regulators. Get your friends and fellow volunteers to talk about the League's priorities for money and politics. Lobby at your state capitol or city hall and talk with your elected representatives about campaign finance reform and what we want it to look like. You and your League friends and supporters can host a forum, a film and discussion meetup, or a community conversation about money and politics and its hold over our democracy. Then talk about the ways we can unwind money's grip on our collective power. You can also start a campaign for fairer elections. Get your community working with you by finding partnering organizations and new activists. Now's the time for creative thinking, people power, and a commitment to a more perfect democracy. Now's the time to inspire others to get involved. Lastly, to help you continue the mission of making democracy work for all, we have resources to help. On our website, we have the Money and Politics Action Kit, loaded with templates and ideas to get you started and to keep you moving as you improve your community and state election and political process. We also have an online League community to help you brainstorm ideas and learn what other communities across the country are doing. A more perfect democracy takes work and support. Join the League of Women Voters and make a donation. Join and donate online at lwv.org.